It's worked so far, but we're not out yet.
I wanna know what you're thinking. There are some things you can't hide. I wanna know what you're feeling. Tell me what's on your mind.
Welcome to the Bar Exam. I'm Adam Barr, and I'll be your host and moderator. I'm here because I want to know what's on your mind. I've been a teacher for 23 years, and I'm here to listen to my students and find out what they're thinking on a variety of topics. Let's get to it and subject these kids to the Bar Exam. Hello, welcome to another episode of the Bar Exam. Here is today's trigger warning. This podcast will be discussing suicide and depression. In the show notes, we will have resources and numbers for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. I believe it's 1-800-273-TALK. You can find it at suicidepreventionlifeline.org. The Trevor Project, 1-866-488-7386, or text GOT5 to 741-741 to start a texting conversation. Suicide is not something that I find is unique to our school. But since I've been teaching in this district, we've lost 2 8th graders who have died by suicide. And after speaking to my school social worker, I want to be very deliberate in the terminology that we use. People do not commit suicide, as suicide is not a crime or something one would commit. Think of suicide as a disease where people die by or from suicide, like a person dying from cancer. Suicide and depression are diseases, and this being May of Mental Health Awareness Month, I think it's important that we start to destigmatize the need for treatment for depression and suicide, especially in our youth and high school students. I think COVID has had a huge impact on that, and we'll do another podcast, I think, on just straight mental health and depression. It's not just something you can power through or think happy thoughts and it'll just go away. It's the same as saying, oh, you have cancer, just think happy thoughts and the disease will go away. We need treatment and we need to work on it, and we'll save that for another day. The students I have with me today asked to talk about the loss of their classmate. Johnny would have been graduating this year, which would be their class. But then before we talk about Jonathan, I just want to go a little farther back about the impact suicide has had on our school community. I'm going to give a brief overview of what I've seen with suicide and the loss of students over the years. And some of the things I'm going to say, I'll put links in the notes, or you can search these things on the internet. As I've been here 23 years, my second year of teaching in 2001, we lost 8th grader Timothy O'Clair to suicide. Simply put, his family did everything they possibly could to help him. It was their insurance company that ended up denying Tim's the care that he needed, that sent him home from the hospital, where ultimately he lost his life to suicide. They did everything they could, and still he was let down by the insurance companies. So now in New York State we have Timothy's Law, where mental health care has to be viewed the same as regular health care, and we can't deny health care benefits based on mental health. That's something great to look into. I think it's a New York State only law. I believe it is not national, but that's something we have to spend more on. And then on a short personal note for myself, in 2007, my father died by suicide. So I remember when Jonathan lost his life in 2019, I was talking to my best friend who asked if I had heard about something called Project Semicolon, which is an American nonprofit organization known for its advocacy and grassroots work for mental health awareness, and it focuses on an anti-suicide initiative. The idea of Project Semicolon is to take a pause, which is what a semicolon would do for you in a sentence, and think about your consequences before thinking about suicide. After that, I ended up having a semicolon tattooed on me, and people will understand if they know what it means, they know what it means. I made sure I put it somewhere visible so students could see it, or other people. I've had many conversations with complete strangers who have lost loved ones to suicide, because it's, I think, pretty significant and not something we should hide or be ashamed of. It's something that we really need to have a conversation about. Now I'm going to turn this over to the students. I'll let them introduce themselves. Today we have
Gino. Madison.
Kaya.
Excellent. Let me just try and get you started with, I know Johnny was your classmate in 8th grade and you're all graduating seniors. How did each of you know Johnny?
I was friends with him since 6th grade. Well, that's as far as I can remember. And then we went through middle school together and had many classes throughout all of the years.
I had a few classes, and I also met him through Madison as well.
Johnny got held back in 5th grade, and when our grade was moving up, I met him through 5th grade.
I remember as a teacher, when we have a crisis, we usually would get a phone call or now a text to be in early because something happened. And in our heads, I'm always thinking, oh my God, what happened now? And I remember us getting the call at the high school. How did you hear about Johnny's death?
I came late into school and I went to my first period, and I could tell right away that there was teachers that were upset, and I didn't really think much of it. That's not really a thought you have when you first wake up. I went to my class and I sat down, and my teacher came and pulled me out and told me right in the hallway. And she asked me if I was good to go back to class, and it didn't hit me quite yet. I went back to class and it hit me like in class, and then I had to end up leaving. So I found out during my period 1 class.
I was getting ready to go on a flight, and I learned directly from the friend, his sister directly texted me about it.
I remember finishing my first period class, and everything seemed fine and normal, and then I would go to my second class, and that's when everyone was acting weird. There was a lot of whispering, a lot of gossiping. It was very quiet until I asked one of my friends, like, hey, what's going on? And then they broke the news.
And what's 8th grade? Is that 13, 14 years old?
Yeah.
That's really young. Did any of you have any experience with death before that?
I did. That same month, my grandmother died, and then my dad, when I was super young, ended his life in front of my own dad.
I personally have an experience with my own mother dying when I was very young as well.
I don't think up until that point there was anything recent. I know up to that point it was my aunt and my grandfather.
So even though, except maybe you, Maddie, who experienced something a little different, did any of those two experiences feel like you prepared you at all for what you were now about to go through?
No, I guess being younger had a big effect on me, not really understanding. I didn't grow a huge connection with any of them because I was so young, and as you go through school, you grow a connection with different people, but you never know that that day might be the last day.
I've been at the high school for the loss of multiple students from cancer. I remember we lost a student to infection. We've lost teachers. What was the middle school environment like after you found out, or the greater student body found out? What was it like that day, and then what was it like for the days after?
I know that, that day, I know I ended up leaving early because the majority of the student body found out during the lunch period when they broke the news. So after that, I don't really know, but from when I heard, it was just hysterical. It was just
Yeah, so they put us into a separate room with counselors and stuff, and they had a dog there too to try to make us feel better, I guess. And there was a lot of people crying, and a lot of people just didn't know what to do. I stayed because I didn't want to go home. I wanted to be around people, but they told everybody in the cafeteria, and I remember people just coming in crying from people telling them in the cafeteria. There was just a lot of crying. It was rough.
Then my question is, if people knew ahead of time and the school waited until lunch to tell you, I know we're looking back in hindsight, and I'll defend the school for this. With the counselors, they try to do the best they can. Do you think it would have been better if you had been told earlier in the day? I remember when Tim O'Clair lost his life to suicide, I was given a piece of paper to read in homeroom to my homeroom students. And in 2001, I was okay doing that. If I had to do that today, I wouldn't be able to handle it. I haven't been in the school. I'm trying to think of how to word this. I wasn't here when my wife died to see how that was announced or what the school felt like. But do you think it would have been beneficial to find out earlier in the day? Or do you think trying to do it in a large group to tell as many people as possible at once was the right thing to do? And again, I'm not passing judgment.
I feel like if they told us early on, it would have been a little better, only because you don't have this big room full of people who got hit with this really hard news and they don't know how they're going to react. If you do it in the morning, like it happened with your situation, it makes it so you're in a smaller room with people. There's not so many other people around you, and you don't go on for half the day smiling and happy when something tragic happened and you don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I can argue both sides. Like, it's 7:30 in the morning, we all just woke up. How do you kind of drop that news on everyone so early? But to do it in a large group, it can be overwhelming, but at the same time, at least you're with everybody. Yeah.
I mean, there's never a perfect way to
Yeah, I mean, they did the best
do
that
this
they could.
situation.
It's not like, it's not every day, like, you have to do something like this.
Yeah, I agree with both sides. I would argue both sides.
Now, here's the interesting one that I've always felt. How long did the period of mourning last in your school? If you remember, how long was it before school sort of felt like it was time to go back to normal?
I feel like they kind of tried to force school back onto us. Anytime we would try to go to the guidance just because we're having a rough day or something would, like, trigger our memory and we would, like, start to, like, panic, they were like, oh, you guys got to go back to class. Even, like, if, like, I used to call my mom because school was still a struggle for me, because he was my best friend during school, so, like, I didn't like going to school without him. So when that happened, I used to spend a lot of time in the guidance, like, after I did my work and everything, and they were like, you got to go back to class. And I was like, okay.
I agree. It was, like, pretty fast and rushed. Whenever we tried, they'd be like, you can't really stay down here.
Yeah, for me, it was like kind of slow because I would like see him a lot throughout the day, and just like to go back, the next week and the week after that, and then like just finishing the school year and have that in the back of my mind being like, oh, this would be the time, like sucked. And that was the hardest part about getting over it.
Did you feel when school starts to go back to normal, either personally guilty, like I remember after losing my wife or my father, how if you're having fun or laughing, how you may feel personally guilty? Did you feel maybe anger at your classmates that how are you going on with your lives? Well, we've just lost one of our classmates. Or were you, at 13 years old, able to rationalize that you're all in different places? How did you feel about the school when it did sort of go back to normal?
So I will definitely say part of me was, like, upset and didn't understand how people bounce back so fast. But I did understand, like, not everybody knew him the way I knew him. And anytime we were having fun or something or a big event is happening at the school, that's the first thing that goes to my mind. Like, he should be with us. He should be doing this with us. He would love this or anything like that. So it was definitely, like, fighting my own head, I don't want to blame other people and be like, you guys can't have fun. At the same time, I'm like, all right, we got to go have fun. Like, that's what he would want.
Yeah, I don't hold that against anyone. I can't blame someone or be mad at the school or, the certain person for moving on and having fun because, like Maddie said, not everyone was close with him. Not everyone knew him the way we knew him. So you can't hold it on someone.
I also personally think it never went back to normal. There's always a big part missing, but I do agree you can't blame anyone for moving on. because it's not what he would have wanted.
Now, I know you were all young then, but do you feel that his death has either shaped or changed your worldview or the way you look at life?
Yes, it showed me that you never know when the time can happen, and to never take anyone for granted. Like, make sure you don't end on an argument now. Like, I will never fight with somebody and be like, all right, I'm going home. Like, I will fix it then and there now, because you never know. That might be the last day you'll see them.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, life is quick, like, very, so,
Yeah.
I mean, that's, like, all I can really say or think about it, like, it's just quick.
Yeah, I just feel like you never know what could happen or with who at any point in time.
I'd like to thank our students, because for me this is such an important topic. I'm going to bring in a friend of mine from the school. I'll let her introduce herself, and then she has, I think, some really important words on suicide and mental health for all of us.
Mm-hmm. So good morning, and my name is Diane Blinn. I'm a student assistance counselor here at Mahonis, and I've been here 33 years. And so I've been listening and just remembering the days that we lost some really important people from our community. So I'm pretty moved right now, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. I actually went down to the middle school and met you all for the first time on that day. You weren't even in high school yet, and I brought my little puppy. Do you remember? And we did some things well, and we did some things in hindsight that we'll never do again. We learned that maybe keeping kids in the classroom with a teacher they already have a relationship with in small little pods is a better way to talk with students as opposed to a large group. I mean, we learned, we made some mistakes. It was one of the first times we experienced that, and everybody was really overwhelmed and sad, but people did the best that they could given the circumstances. But we take each experience and we learn from it. And it was a hard way to learn. That was just such a hard day. It was such a sad experience.
And to say that I've been lucky historically to teach upperclassmen when we've lost students in the high school, mm-hmm. I've been able to use it as a teachable moment and teach about grief, where I think I understand where the students are, and it's not such a hurry of back to school, back to normal, where mm-hmm. I feel there's a lot of push to normalcy, a routine. I know I've met multiple students this year who have lost family members, and they were in school a day or two later, mm-hmm. And we'll talk about that another day. I just wanted to give you an opportunity, because you deal with our student body, to talk about suicide quickly and how important it is, as you're going to say, to check in right. on each other.
And I think everything that you all said was just really amazing and beautiful, and I appreciate the conversation today. I think it's really important that we talk about this, so that we destigmatize. But I guess what I would really want to most impart on people is that we check in with others, we check in with our friends, that we don't take for granted that somebody's okay. To really say to somebody, hey, are you okay? And I really mean, are you okay?
Yes, I think that we use the words "I'm fine" and kind of blow that question off mm-hmm. so often with, how are you doing? I'm fine. I'm okay. Or we don't really have ways to express maybe how we're really feeling for a lot of reasons, especially as teenagers.
Right. And be specific with your concerns. Say, hey, I've really noticed that you've withdrawn, or you're not hanging out as much, or you don't seem happy, or you stopped doing things that you used to love to do, and that concerns me, and I love you, and I want to be there for you. And being able to give permission to have those kinds of conversation is really important. So checking in with your friends and not taking things for granted, as you all said, and not being afraid to say those words. Are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking about killing yourself? And being direct in your conversation, because people will tell you if they are. More often than not, they'll be honest with you. So, and being prepared for an honest answer. and knowing who your go-to people are. There's lots of people in the high school that have been trained and that care, and that's teachers, guidance counselors, hall monitors, and then reach out and help get your friend connected with a trusted adult.
I like the last thing you said. I always wanted my children to be attached to at least one teacher in every building they were in. I realize every student is not going to like every teacher. I realize not every student is going to like me, but I hope that they have somebody in the building that they feel like they could talk to or go to that creates a safe space for them.
And it could be, a coach, a woman that, or somebody who works in the cafeteria. They have great relationships with the students. They remember what you eat every day, right? Yeah. Just find your person, find your people.
So I would really like to thank my students for sharing,
and it's so beautiful.
Diane for sharing. This is a really, I think, difficult subject that we need to not ignore.
Right.
I think it's
and we can save lives by having these conversations. These conversations save lives.
And again, in the show notes, we have links and numbers for the resources. And I think for students, the Trevor Project got 741
Project 741 is for LGBTQ plus students. They're very sensitive and aware. And so I encourage our LGBTQ plus community to try Trevor Project first.
Yeah, and with today's students, I think the ability to text as opposed to talk to somebody provides a layer where they might not want to pick up a phone and call somebody, but they might be willing to text. It feels more anonymous and more natural.
Right.
So thank you for joining us for this difficult topic. And as this is May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, I'd like all of you to be safe, try to find someone you trust, and take care of yourselves.